What's up guys, Winner Kills here and welcome to a brand new test hand video. Today I am going to be showcasing to you guys for the first time ever a new and experimental build of Earth machines. And interestingly enough, my brother, who has actually started playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh again, is picking this deck up because he really likes the play style of it. And in doing that, helping him get reacclimated with the game and everything, I've been, exposing myself to this deck a lot more and just sort of rediscovering how much I love this deck. And a new card was recently released in Dawn of Majesty that kind of sparked a very cool idea in my head for a new, again, experimental build with this deck, and you're going to be seeing how that plays out in today's video. You may be already able to guess what that card is, but yeah, if you can, let me know down in the comment section below before you skip forward. Just another thing I want to mention, currently my brother is on the sort of traditional build, strike, torrential, all that stuff. This build is very similar. The starter lineups are still the same, all the combos are still relatively the same, but we got a little bit of spice in here. I'm not really saying this version's better than the traditional version, but I really like the idea of this one and where it could possibly go in the future, and the potential it really has. And really quick before we get into today's video, I want to mention a quick shout out to Imperium Duelist, one of the lovely sponsors of this channel for quite some time now. They sell all sorts of amazing TCG accessories like binders, deck boxes, sleeves, playmats, dice, and more. More specifically, these sleeves here, these are meant for double sleeving. They go over sort of like Pokemon sized cards, and they will fit over Yu-Gi-Oh cards that are already sleeved. I've been using these on my extra deck sleeves on various other decks, and even the new deck that is going to be the new deck for One Deck One Month. I don't have them on this extra deck right now just because I don't have enough sleeves to put on all my extra decks, but these are from Imperium. They sell all sorts of great stuff. Check them out in the link below. Make sure to use my discount code WINNERKILLS at checkout to save 10% off your entire order. And if you guys are buying anything on TCG Player, please do not forget to use my affiliate link down in the description below, because if you guys shop and check out using that link, a small bit of the revenue from your purchase will go right back in the channel and helps out a ton. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into today's video, which is going to be some Earth Machine test hands with this very sort of spicy and experimental build of the deck. So I'm going to go ahead and finish shuffling here, and we'll start off with our first test hand. Now, I would like to preface before we draw our first hand that this build, again, is very similar to the traditional variants that you guys have seen me play in the past. Again, all the combo lines are pretty much the same. It is still very much sort of like a mid-range aggro deck, but instead of playing traps, we're playing more hand traps. So let's see how this first hand goes. We opened our one card starter. You love to see that. And we're already spoiling it here on the first hand. A copy of Iris Sword Soul. And then we have a copy Iron Draw, Called by the Grave, and a copy of Harvester. Wow, this is a hand here. This hand is going to demonstrate everything, all the theory that I've been putting into this very particular build, which is great because now I don't need to simulate it later on the end of the video. Just wanted to zoom in a little bit for you guys, but let's go ahead and take a look at this opening hand. So we have Harvester, Call by the Grave, Iron Draw, the Iris Sword Soul, and a copy of Machina Metal Cruncher. Now with this particular hand, you guys know it, like always, we can either start with one of these cards right here. And like I said, nothing really has changed too much in the core mechanic of the build. So we are going to start with the Metal Cruncher. If they have an Ash, a Valor, we have the Called by for it, so we're chilling there. Now if they have an Imperm, that's a bit of a different story. Imperm is kind of clutch, but if they Imperm, we can summon the Iris Sword Soul and at least have a body on board for next turn that we can kind of gain some advantage off if they try to summon from one of the locations listed on the card. But let's just go ahead and play this one out, just sort of showcase the theory behind why I am running these specific cards, Iron Draw and Iris Sword Soul. So we're going to add the Dozer like usual. We'll tribute off the Metal Cruncher. And again, yes, they could be interrupting us here at any point, but the point of this particular test hand is not to showcase what to do if we get hand trapped here, this, that, and the other thing. I just, again, want to showcase, why I'm playing these two very specific cards and how they will come up and what situations will we be using them. What good do they bring to the table? So we're going for River Stormer. River Stormer again is going to go ahead and add us our classic card, which is going to be that of the Bullet Train. Again, like I said, none of the play lines have really changed. One thing I am going to do is summon the Bullet Train immediately, though, because if we get Nibiru'd, we want to get Bullet on field as soon as possible, because if we get with a Nib token, we cannot summon this to the board. So that's one other bit of, philosophy and play style change that has come with this deck, as I've been rediscovering with my brothers. Getting Bullet on the field as soon as possible. They let the River Stormer walk. They don't nib you, because I believe this is the 5th summon. Get this Bullet on field as soon as possible. It really could not hurt at the end of the day. So we're going to link that River Stormer into Goliath. We're going to use River Stormer to send off the Goliath to summon itself, and then link off this into another Goliath. And then from there, we can go ahead and link these two into Ballista. And doing it that way sort of plays around the triple Phantasme draw, which I like to do if I can, because Phantasme is kind of popular right now, and maybe in most people's main decks, depending on what your local meta looks like. But we're just going to go ahead and add Box, and then Box will add the Tunneler, just saving a little time there. And also, right now, I guess, while we're at this point, for those that don't know what these cards do, Iris Sword Soul says during the main phase, if a monster whose effects are negated is on the field, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. If your opponent special summons a monster or monsters, except during the damage step, you can activate one of these effects based on where it was summoned from. Hand, special summon a monster from your hand. Deck, draw 2 cards. Extra deck, destroy one of those monsters, special summon from the extra deck. So a pretty awesome card there, but I'll show the true synergy of this card in just a bit. And then Iron Draw says if you control exactly 2 machine effect monsters and no other monsters, draw 2 cards. For the rest of the turn after this card resolves, you can only special summon once. You can only activate 1 Iron Draw per turn. So you guys will see again where these come up in just a moment. But obviously from here, like usual, we're going to use the Tunneler, I almost called it Trencher, to tribute off the Ballista, and we're going to link that into our 3rd and final Goliath. And then we're going to use this Trencher Engrave to bring back the Tunneler or the Dozer, whatever you want to do. And then we're going to, actually, before we go any further, this is where we're going to have to use our Iron Draw, because as I just read, after we use this, we will only be able to special summon one more time, but that's okay, because where does our normal combo end usually? On Knuckle or Knuckle Dora, which we technically could still go for, but we don't absolutely need to. There is a way you can still Iron Draw when you have the rank 10 route. You just make your Knuckle and you make your number 81, and then you Iron Draw, because you're typically not really going to special summon after that. So now we're going to go ahead and activate the Iron Draw to draw into another Iron Draw and a Heavy Forward. So I mean, it doesn't really matter. We basically got to resolve Pot of Greed there. And then we're going to go ahead and link these using our last special summon on the double-headed Anger Knuckle. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and just draw a few more cards. I was kind of going to nickname this deck like Deep Draw Machines, but, you know, we don't need to change the classic name just because. So we'll put back those 4 extra deck monsters, the 3 Goliath and the Ballista, alongside the Dozer. Actually, we'll leave the Dozer in the grave, and we'll put back the Metal Cruncher. It's good Fortress discard fodder for later, and will help ensure that any redeployments we draw will be live, and also have the opportunity to grab a starter off of it if we need to. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle the deck here. We'll give it a cut to simulate our opponent cutting it, and then we'll draw a Heavy Forward and a Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill. So I'm playing Ghost Mourner in here, obviously, because it has great synergy with Iris Sword Soul, because it doesn't negate a monster's effect face up on the field. And this card I also find is not terrible, especially playing into boards. It's kind of like a better Veiler, and it still also kind of hits a lot of the same problematic cards that Veiler does. Hits the Shurig on summon against Tri-Brigade. I can hit the Battle Butler on summon against Prank Kids. Even going against VW, you can hit the M7 or the Ultimaya Zolkin if you really need to. So it all still does the same job as Veiler, and it can also hit the Predaplant Verity Anaconda to unsummon. So we've drawn 4 cards this turn. Granted, one of them was another Iron Draw, which actually I'm only playing 2 of, and the Heavy Forward. The Heavy Forward is nice. Cannot complain about the Heavy Forward. We have so many cards in our hand. So I think what I would do now is go ahead and set all of these cards, and then end phase we'll add back the Dozer off the bullets. And that will pretty much do it for our turn. Now here is where things sort of start to get a little interesting. So we have this Iris Sword Soul in our hand, and of course we also set the call by too. Now during their turn, like normal, we're going to try to use Knuckle here to bring back out the Bullet Train. And Bullet Train hits the field thanks to Knuckle with its effects negated. So once Knuckle resolves, we can chain the Iris Sword Soul to summon itself to the field, giving us more added protection. And if they summon from hand, we can summon the Harvester to get a search for next turn. We could summon Dozer to summon out another body to get a Trencher out of the deck, right? That we don't need to search it next turn. And they have to clear our entire board. And let's say, you know, for example, we're never able to get the Bullet out. That's where we have the Mourner to come in clutch as well. And like we have still tremendous amounts of follow-up. And this card is still a level 8 2500 beater for following turns. And if they summon from deck, you know, if they activate Drytron Nova, we get to draw 2 more cards, and we just drew into Effect Valor and Redeployment. So we technically have 2 Valors in our hand on top of having the call by. And, you know, same thing. If this card gets cleared, we add back the box. Box adds Drill. And then we're starting our turn with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Drill is 7. And our draw for turn is 8. Plus, we have 4 cards in our back line here. So in between, you know, as we finish this test hand up, I will kind of spill the beans here. I am playing a very hand trap heavy lineup. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, yo, you could have played a lot of traps because, like, you know, you just drew 4 cards that turn. Why not play more traps to try to draw into? Well, the synergy is, you know, we're adding in more hand traps, right? Like Moonlit Chill and Valor, because if we don't have the Iron Draw setup, the cards we draw off Iris Sword Soul, we want to be live. We want to be cards that we can use to interact with our opponent at our earliest possible convenience. So playing hand traps just made the most sense because you don't want to be drawing into like Strike Torrential off your Iris Sword Soul because they're literally going to be doing nothing for you whatsoever. And then hand traps are just great because if you lose die roll, seeing any one of these 5 hand traps is really strong. And I'm playing 2 copies of each of these, Iris Sword Soul included, and 2 Iron Draw. Now, you're saying you're playing a lot of 2-ofs, but you just saw in the span of, you know, our turn and then at the start of our opponent's turn, we drew 6 cards. We don't really want to be drawing a lot of multiples of once per turn hand traps. Valor being the only exception. Now, you could change that and play like Meister and DD Crow, but Meister and DD Crow I don't think are as good as like Bell and a card like Ash or Nibiru. So that is the lineup. It's basically just 2 Iris, 2 of these, 2 of these, 2 of these, 2 of these, 2 of these. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 hand traps, if you will, and plenty of ways to draw cards. And I find it funny, we drew 6 cards, no overdrive, which I also am playing too, because like, funny enough, by the time I had, you know, completely played Earth Machine before 1 deck 1 month and after 1 deck 1 month, I was on the 2 overdrive train in the main deck, and I know a lot of people might find that a little confusing why you would play 2 overdrive, but the card has the same problem as cards like EMR did in the past, that if you draw a bad hand with overdrive as a trap, it is not nearly as good as something like Strike Torrential, which are always live on their own. Strike, obviously, you know, assuming you have the life points to pay for it, but I mean, that goes without saying when it comes to Solemn Strike. And, you know, Overdrive has that same problem. It can make bad hands worse. And my brother, interestingly enough, has also, of his own volition, jumped to the double Overdrive in the main deck. Now, you could obviously play the triple Overdrive, and then you could, like, cut one of the hand traps and then play a third of, like, one of the most, like, valuable hand traps. Like, you could play a third Valor, you could play a third Ash, right? And then that second hand trap, that second copy of that other hand trap, like, that you cut could just become the third Overdrive if you really want to play it. Yeah, so there's the theory behind everything. Now let's just go ahead and draw into some hands here and maybe try to play through a hand trap or 2, play through some realistic hands, and see what we are capable of doing. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish shuffling, and then again we'll draw into our next hand. Alright, deck has been shuffled. Let's go ahead and draw into our second test hand of this video. We have Iron Draw, Ghost Mourner, Iris Sword Soul, Effect Valor, and a copy of Infinitrack Trencher. Well, let this be a perfect example of, you know, one of the also potential issues with this deck. Now, if this were sort of like the traditional build of Earth Machines that play a lot of traps, You could argue that this could be a trap card, this could be a trap card, this could be a trap card, and this could be a trap card, because that's all I took out was these cards right here. Strike, Torrential, the third Ash, and a Harpy's Feather Duster. So we would have an assortment of any of these cards here that take up these 4 cards. So no engine is no engine regardless of how you look at it. But the reason why I think this is still okay is because we still have 2 effect negation cards in hand, and it's also paired with Iris Sword Soul, which becomes a body, which could potentially draw us into 2 more cards, Redeployment and the Dozer, assuming we obviously make it that far. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty okay board. I mean, it's pretty okay hand. If we're going second, we have Redeployment as our 6th card. Like, this is still really, really strong. One of the other issues, I guess, I don't know if I'd call it an issue, is the fact that Iron Draw and Sword Soul can conflict sometimes because this is a light spellcaster and not a machine. But there are ways to get rid of this card. You know, you can overlay for it with Ding, or you could just send it off for your Knuckle if you need to get it off the field, which is something you can do. And that's why I think Knuckle is a really, really strong card. Because again, if you need to get something off your field, like an Imperial Order, if it's sided in, or an Iris Sword Soul preventing you from putting a bullet on board, or using Iron Draw, that's something you can do. So there are ways to out your own Iris Sword Soul if you absolutely need to. But yeah, if we're going second, we just hope that these 2 hand traps are going to be enough. Let's say we're playing against Drytron and they normal summon, or even if they summon Mubeta Fafnir, right? We hit it with the Moonlit Chill. And then on resolution, we activate Sword Soul to summon this. You know, they could go ahead and activate Nova to summon from the deck. We would then draw 2 cards, drawing us into that Redeployment Dozer. Let's say they have let's say they also follow that up with maybe a Diviner, hit the Diviner with a Veiler. Now, them playing through 2 hand traps is probably not going to fully stop them unless they didn't open up like insane. But I find 2 hand traps is typically enough to slow down most meta decks enough to the point where you are able to, completely stop them from going full combo, I guess. And then the card we actually draw per turn, there would be another Redeployment, which is hilarious. But, you know, Redeployment here, I'd probably go for Fortress and Citadel here, since going for Cruncher is going to be a no-no. And I guess also looking at that point, this card can also conflict with the Metal Cruncher. That is, of course, if your opponent doesn't clear this card, which most of the time they probably are going to clear it. So some of those instances where it may conflict, it's not always going to conflict because your opponent will just clear it for you. So not much to dive into with that hand other than a bunch of hypotheticals. Maybe one of these next hands we'll do a going second hand into a typical board and see if we can do much through it. But I'm going to go ahead and shuffle again, and we'll draw into another test hand. Alright, deck has been fully shuffled, did a little bit of a pile shuffle too, so let's draw into our next hand here and see what we have. Heavy Forward, Infinitrack Tunneler, Super Express Bullet Train, ooh, the Ancient Gearbox, and a copy of Nibiru the Primal Being. So if we do lose die roll or whatever, we are going second, we do have one going second card, our 6th card being another Heavy Forward. Not too big of a deal. So with this particular hand, we can actually showcase the put back box combo here for those that are unaware of how this whole thing plays out. So here there's a couple things. Opening up the Tunneler is actually really nice because if we go Heavy Forward and we go ahead and search for the Harvester. Now if they Ash the Heavy Forward, which is the only thing they could use to stop it, we could basically normal summon box, tribute the box to summon the Tunneler, link this into Goliath, then summon the Bullet, link both of those into a Knuckle, and at that point I don't think we'd have enough to resolve the Tunneler at that point. So if they Ash here, we're in a very, very, very bad spot, but we can at least still establish Knuckle with both Bullet and Box and Grave, and then the Bullet would add Box, Box would add Drill for next turn, which is like still a really good follow-up. So even if they Ash the worst case thing for us, and for them, I don't think this is a good Ash either because, you know, we could have a Harvester in hand already and we'd be chilling. But if they do Ash that, you know, we still have our Knuckle, Bullet, Box sort of resource loop with a Primal Being in hand. So, like, it's not the end of the world if they hit us there with the Ash. Now we're going to normal summon this. Now, if they ash this, things get a little more complicated. It's still not the end of the world. If they ash veil or imperm this, the only thing that would really suck is if they gamma this. Then we'd really be out of luck. We'd have to pass after that, unfortunately. But we go ahead and search Dozer here. If it doesn't get ash, but if it does, we would link this into Goliath. Then Dozer, then Tunneler Tribute, summon this. Make Knuckle pitch that, summon that back. So yeah, if they ash this, you know, we can still try to end on kind of the same board that we would have had to do if this got ash, but it's still not going to be pretty either way. But I think for educational purposes, let's just go ahead and show how to pull off the return the box back to the hand combo. So we're gonna go ahead and add Dozer, because like this is already a very subpar opening, and if it gets met with any sort of interruption, like we're already just gonna be in such a bad spot to begin with either way. So this is gonna add us the Dozer, importantly, and then we're gonna link this into a copy of Goliath. Importantly, when you have box and the Harvester, you always want to link that Harvester into a Goliath first before you resolve Dozer, because you need this extra name engraved for Tunneler. Now we're going to attribute this for the Dozer. Dozer normally here would summon Tunneler, but Tunneler's already in our hand. So what exactly are we going to do about this? That's a good question. We're just going to summon a Trencher from the deck. That's all we are going to do. And then we're going to use Tunneler to tribute the Trencher. And then we're going to overlay these into a copy of Riverstormer. This is fine because we're just going to get an extra copy of Trencher in our grave to have as more follow-up. And then we're going to detach off of the Riverstormer to go ahead and add any Earth Machine or send any Earth Machine here. We could add Bullet, which is normally what we'd add here if we didn't already draw the bullets. But we could also add Derricrane. But I don't think with this particular board we can make the rank 10 end board. So I'm just going to take the safe route here and dump a copy of Citadel to the grave, assuming that we aren't going to get Citadel access this turn. So we're just going to go ahead and put that in the grave right where we want it. And then we're going to link this into a copy of Goliath. And then we're going to summon the Bullet to the field. And then we're going to link these, importantly enough, into a copy of Double-Headed Anger Knuckle. This is where things get a little tricky. And things can be a little confusing. So now we're going to use the Knuckle pitching the box, and box is going to, or Knuckle's going to summon out the Bullet. And importantly, we're doing this because we need the box engraved to recycle with Tunneler. Now we're going to use Riverstormer's effect engraved, tributing off this to summon itself back out. And then at this point, we are going to resolve the Tunneler, putting back the Knuckle, the two Goliaths, and we'll also put back box, and I'd also put back the Dozer here as well. This is one of those times where we do want to put back the box. Sometimes I don't like to recycle the box off of Tunneler, just because having the resource loop with bullets, box, and Knuckle is really, really strong. And if you put that card back in the deck, sometimes you lose that loop at the trade-off of having it searchable off of your Ballista on the following turns. So let's cut the deck here. Let's draw into two cards, and we draw into Iron Draw. We draw Ancient Gearbox. We're just going to go ahead and put that back because that's just a really unlucky draw. It's probably literally the worst case scenario. So we draw Overdrive Fortress, which is pretty strong because if we draw into the box there, we're basically just forced to make the other Knuckle and pass, which isn't like terrible like if we draw the box, but odds are you're not going to draw the box. And with this particular scenario, like it's also fine because like we have Trencher. But we're going to link these two into the Ballista, and this is one of the reasons why not drawing the box is nice, because you can just, you know, search off the Ballista, grab this, and then we already have a Trencher engraved, so I'm probably just going to go ahead and grab the Drill for a follow-up. And then from here, since we already again have Trencher established engraved, we're going to use Trencher to bring out the Harvester, and then we're going to link with these into a copy of that Knuckle that we recycled earlier. And that will allow us to establish that resource loop with Bullet, Box, and Knuckle. And we can still set the Overdrive and add one back off of Bullet in the end phase, which I'm going to add back this. You could add back the Ballista if you want. But we have all these cards. We have a Citadel engrave already, so we can summon out Cruncher from the deck to get a search and then get Citadel on board. And we have Nib in hand. Like, we have so many good follow-ups with this. I think it would be cool to actually make a video or do a hand with this particular video showing how to put game on board, because I know my brother is somebody who's been learning the deck. He says one of the more difficult things to do with this deck is figuring out how to actually game your opponent on turn 3. And, you know, to me, that's no surprise because I think turn 3 with this deck is the hardest thing to do and master just because of how many options you typically have available to you at that point if you're able to completely, you know, halt your opponent from making their full board. So yeah, we might go ahead and do that now actually, or yeah, we'll do that in one of these hands and then we'll maybe play through some more interruptions on one of the following hands. So I'm going to shuffle and then we'll do another one. All right, let's go ahead and cut the deck here and draw into our next hand. We have Heavy Forward, Redeployment, copy of Effect Veiler, Nibiru, and a Machina Metal Cruncher. So we have 2 going second cards in this hand. Our 6th card would be Box. Well, good thing we're not going second. I mean, if we do draw Box going second, it's not terrible because they are probably getting hit with Veiler Nib, which means we can do that same put back Box combo we literally did in the last turn because we have access to Heavy Forward. You can do put back Box with Cruncher. It's just a little less good because you have to put back River Stormer, I believe, off of it because you can't link the Metal Cruncher into a Goliath, unfortunately. But with this particular hand, let's go ahead and try to play out I think one of the more difficult things to try and play through, which is like Ash on the Dozer. Ash on Dozer is really, really difficult. But let's just go ahead and play this out like it's sort of our standard run-of-the-mill turn. We're going to start with the Heavy Forward. We could start with the Redeployment, but I want to save that for, you know, last. You activate your worst cards first and your best cards last, right? So we're going to activate Heavy Forward, and then we're going to normal summon the Harvester. Harvester effect will go ahead and add us Dozer. Now, and this is also another sort of like change in philosophy with the deck too, is I do like the rank 9 combo in this deck quite a bit, but it is very, very resource intensive at the end of the day. And it's like not needed as much just because it does kind of lose to hand traps a little bit more. So I'd rather do standard combo if I have it and then save like the big redeployment plays for like backup, if you will. So now we're going to attribute that as cost, activate Dozer effect, and then go ahead and hit Ash on this. Ash, Veiler, Imperm, whatever it may be. So now our best card in the deck is not getting a chance to resolve, which does hurt quite a bit. Well, it's a good thing we still have this redeployment in hand, because if we were to sort of like commit and go the other way, if they wait to Dozer after we tribute Ballista, or Ash the Dozer after we Ballista, like we're still in kind of a bad position because, you know, the Heavy Forward's not going to do us a whole lot of good at that point, because we would just have this and Ender Blathnir, and we can't use Trencher to tribute Ender Blathnir because it is not a Earth machine. So now we're going to go ahead and redeploy. We did discard a Machina card, so we could go ahead and have the option to grab Overdrive, which I think is pretty strong too. Or we could just grab the Fortress and Citadel, which I think is probably what I'm going to do. Because we still can make more plays here, and making more plays is always nice. But if you really want to play it safe, you could just go ahead and grab like Fortress and Overdrive, and just call it there with the Veiler Nib. But I want to play it out a little bit further, so let me go ahead and find the cards I'm actually looking for. If I cannot find them, there we go, Fortress and Citadel. And now from here, we're just going to summon the fort by pitching the Citadel to the grave. And we're going to link this into Goliath, and then we're going to link both of these into a copy of the Ballista. And now we're going to activate Ballista to go ahead and add Box, and then we'll trigger Box to go ahead and add another extender. At this point, we could add the Trencher, and then we could Trencher out like Dozer and make a copy of Knuckle after that. Or we could try to resolve Tunneler here, because I definitely think we can resolve the Tunneler. Yeah, so I am going to go ahead and try to resolve the Tunneler here. Maybe we can draw into more hand traps. And so long as we can establish Knuckle, you know, we're already in kind of a decent spot. So we're actually going to pitch both of these to bring the Fortress back out. And then we're going to link both of these into that double-headed Anger Knuckle. And then we're going to go ahead and activate Tunneler, putting back this. Both the extra deck monsters, very, very easy choices there. The Dozer and the Metal Cruncher. So we have to put 3 back to the main deck and 2 to the extra. Could be a worse Tunneler if you ask me, but we get to keep Fortress, we get to keep Citadel, and we get to keep the Harvester Engrave, which I think is a really strong candidate to be able to add back off of something like Bullet, because, you know, we don't need to tribute something for it like off of Dozer, and it's just our normal summon, and we can level mod with it too. So let's cut the deck and draw 1 and 2. So we draw a Harvester and a Cruncher. So we have follow-up for next turn, which is the best thing to have. And we also have the Citadel live in the grave. So yeah, overall a pretty solid hand. We were able to play through Ash, Valor, or Imperm on one of our best extenders in the entire deck, and that was Dozer. And we still end on 4 cards in hand. Recycled pretty much most of our engine. We have access to Citadel engraved with these. So like, I feel like that's a pretty good hand. Now for this next hand, because this video's already been going kind of long, let's try to convert, you know, how to like convert for game with our standard end board. All right, so let's go ahead and cut the deck here. And basically the way I'm going to do this is if we open up a standard combo, we're going to go through our standard combo here. And we have it, because all we need, again, is that 1 card starter, which the ratios are still the same. Still 3 Heavy Forward, 3 Cruncher, 3 Redeployment, 3 Harvester. Everything is still the same. Luckily, playing the Sword Soul engine does not change that any way, shape, or form. So we have our standard combo here, and we're just going to quickly fast forward through this and then get to where we'd be starting our second turn, or turn 3. Okay, so we've quickly sped through the combo, but I wanted to bring up an important interaction here. We drew Iron Draw off of our Tunneler. How are we going to make it live? Well, the simple answer is to pitch Box and Fortress to summon out the Fortress. And just like that, we can go ahead and draw into 2 more cards, Nibiru and Nibiru. And then end phase, we can use the Bullet to add back the Box to keep that resource loop. And of course, we'd also need to set one of these because we'd have a little too many cards in our hand. Now let's go ahead and try to simulate what our opponent would be doing on their turn, assuming we were able to do our full combo. Let's say we're playing against like Prank Kids, for example. Let's say they start with Polymerization, which is a really, really strong opening, and they go ahead and pitch like red and blue. Actually, yeah, so they would activate Polymerization. We would chain in response to Poly to bring out the Bullet, and then they would go ahead and activate their effects of like Chainlink 1 blue, Chainlink 2 red, and then we go Chainlink 3 Sword Soul, summon this to the field, and then we go ahead and on resolution we draw 2 more cards, drawing us into Overdrive and Derricrane. They have their Rocket Ride going off or whatever, and then let's say all their stuff resolves and summons. After that happens, we'd go ahead and activate Overdrive, targeting Bullet here, and go ahead and summon out the Citadel. And then we go ahead and use Citadel, and everything they have would be under 2,500 or lower, Rocket Ride included. And we could just use Citadel to pop this Fortress and blow up their entire field. Now they also at this point need to have a normal summon to continue playing. So they've already used red, they've already used blue, and at this point, let's say they also haven't normal summoned yet. That's another follow-up they could have. They've already summoned 1, 2, 3 times. 4th would be their normal, that's fine. 5th would be into Meow Mew, and then they summon a Prank. Let's say on that 6th summon, we go ahead and activate Nibiru, the Primal Being, and everything is just going off the field, and we have our Nibiru, and they have their Nibiru token. And let's say we go ahead and put that Nibiru token in attack position because, well, we're feeling quite saucy. And if they have any other follow-ups, we still have the Ghost Mourner to stop them and continue playing. So now this is where you know, we need to try to OTK them, right? We've had the best possible scenario happen. So end phase, we're gonna go ahead and use Bullet to add back the Box, and because after you nib them and board wipe them, Prank Kids really isn't going to have much to do. So we're gonna use this Box to go ahead and add, where is it? This last copy of Trencher within the main deck, and then we're just going to just cut the deck really quick and draw per turn. And we have Bell, which is insane too. So if they somehow got to Bow Wow, we have the Bell for that. Now, this is our opening hand here as we draw for turn. And to be honest, yeah, there's a lot of options. Let's say we use the Mourner. Yeah, that's all else we really could have used because we drew the Bell for turn. Let's say we use the Bell for turn on Bow Wow or whatever. They got to Bow Wow somehow. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. So many options here. What can we possibly do? Well, I always like to start with the Drill into Box to go for that play. the rank 8 play, which is really strong and really oppressive. Dingirsu is such a crazy card. But I'm going to play it out like this, where we just normal summon Drill, activate effect to bring out Box, and then we use this to target and make it level 8. And then we go ahead and overlay into Dingirsu, and Dingirsu will send, let's say, a Pranks, or a Place they have, or a set card, whatever it may be. And now we're going to go ahead and pitch for the Fortress Engrave, which is always a fantastic resource. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video here real quick, and I want to make an important point regarding to the specific scenario we are trying to play through at the moment. Prankeds makes it a little bit more difficult because, you know, this would be game here, but, you know, they have to have 9,000 life points, right? And also, they did have a Nibiru in their hand, too, so we have to do 9k, and we have to try to do it in under 5 summons, or have an alternate way to work around that. And that would be to summon number 90 Photon Lord instead of Dingirsu. The only issue is that leaves them with the Nibiru token, but it's not really a huge issue. So we'd basically make Photon Lord, then go ahead and summon the Fortress, and then we would continue on with the plays you're about to see me make. And then we're going to use Trencher, banishing itself to bring out Harvester. We'll activate the Harvester effect, and that is going to search us any Infinitrack. I'm going to go ahead and grab Dozer here. Keep in mind, we don't really want to use Dozer if we don't have to. And now at this point, we have options. Again, we could link this into Goliath and send the Goliath with Stormer, and then we could use the Goliath to reattach the Stormer, getting us the search of any Earth machine in our entire deck. Or what we could do is just use Harvester targeting Fortress, go ahead and overlay for a copy of either Enter Blathnir or Earth Slicer. But if we're just trying to go for game, we can go for Slicer, activate forward to attach, and then we can go ahead and detach all of these to pop 3 on their side of the field, and that Nibiru token included. And then we can just go right into the battle phase because we have 31, 3k, and 26, which is game aplenty. And if it's not, we can go ahead and use Overdrive Engrave to recycle 3 and draw, or we can go ahead and send this Overdrive from our hand right now to bring out the Knuckle, which gives us a little bit extra damage also. And then we could Dozer, follow that up, link the Dozer into Goliath, bring out Stormer, get a search, and go into like Gaia Charger, right? That's also an option too. So let's say we play that out, right? We pitch the Overdrive, summon this, we go into battle phase. It's not game somehow, like we tribute this off, then we go ahead and link this into this, we activate the Stormer effect, tribute, Goliath reattach, go ahead and get any search we need, and then let's say we want, I don't know, let's say we just want another Fortress, because Fortress is a great card. And then we can go ahead and overlay a Gaia Charger on top of it, just so it's not like a, you know, a weak body. And then we can go ahead and slap a Zeus, because we're not locked into Earth Machine. So like there's literally no way our opponent is winning that game unless they open literally the absolute stones. But that's just an example of how you would play out turn 3. I hope this is a very valuable test hand video. It was like a very long one, so I hope that it was valuable. I'll definitely be leaving timestamps to make all this information a little bit more digestible. But hopefully my brother will be watching this video too, because he could definitely use a little bit of advice from the Earth Machine Master himself. That's me. No, that's Aerosol TCG. By the way, check out Aerosol TCG. He's the reason why I started playing this deck last year. So huge shout outs, or earlier this year. So huge shout outs to him. Yeah, if you guys want to see like a deck profile of the Sword Soul variant, let me know down in the comments below. I'm sure people already want to see it. But yeah, that's going to do for this video. If you want to see more of my content, click on one of the videos popping up at the bottom of the screen right now, and we'll see you guys in the next one. And last but not least, I want to give a special thanks to the Divine Level channel members who go above and beyond to support this channel, and they are Cadillacs84, Pony Stark, and Keith Siggers. Thank you guys so much for your extremely generous support of me and the channel.